Hi everybody, it's Miss Austin and I'm going to be doing the Unit 3 Lesson 4 practice problems. And we are talking about fraction exponents. Number 1 says evaluate 8 to the 5/3 power. So what we've learned is that this denominator is the root I'm taking and the numerator is the power it's being raised to. Now, I'm going to rewrite it. Some people might be able to process that without rewriting it. I think it makes more sense to rewrite it. So that means I want the cube root of 8 to the 5th power. Now, I would do, right, I want to work with numbers that I can do without a calculator personally. So I'm not going to do 8 to the 5th first. That is huge. I'm going to do the cube root of 8 first. So I'm going to take the cube root of 8, and then I'm going to hold off on that. Okay, so the cube root of 8 is 2. And then 2 to the 5th power, I can do that. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 32. Okay, number 2, select all expressions that are equal to 64 to the 3/2 power. Again, I'm going to rewrite this. Okay, so that means I'm taking the square root. Now, when it's the square root, you don't have to put the 2 here as the index. It's sort of implied. It's the smallest root you can take. But if you want to, you can put the 2 there. So this is the square root of 64 to the 3rd. Now let's just stop. Do we see any that are a match there? Yep, E. Okay. Now let's maybe break this down. Instead of doing 64 to the square root of 64 to the 3rd, let's hold off on that. Let's do this part first. What is the square root of 64? Oh, right? This is 8. And now I can raise 8 to the 3rd power, but let's time out. I see that. That's a match right there before I even finish it. That's 8 to the 3rd. And now what is 8 times 8 times 8? I can do this without a calculator. That's 64, and 64 times 8 is 512. Okay, so this has these two backwards. Definitely not 4 squared. Definitely 96. Number 3, write the expression using radicals. So this means I'm taking the 3rd or cube root of 17 to the 4th. This is the root I'm taking. This is the power it's being raised to. Number 4, oh, back in the good old days when we first started remote learning, Unit 1 says an arithmetic sequence starts with 4, 13, ... Explain how you would calculate the value of the 5,000th term. Well, first of all, it's arithmetic. So that means I'm going up by adding or subtracting. So that looks like I'm adding 9 every time. I could go ahead and add 9 until I got to the 5,000th term, but boy, that would take a long time. So it would be a lot better if I would just write a rule. And all it did is it says explain how. So I would write a rule, and hopefully you remember how to write that rule. I will say to find any term, we start with the first term. And how much am I going up by each time? 9 times the step number. Now, remember, we have to state, are we calling this the 0 term or the first term? It all depends on how you define it. I'm going to assume that this is the 0 term. If 4 is the 0 term, okay, we're going to call that the 0 term, then I'm going to say n greater than or equal to 0. So watch, if I put a 0 in there, 9 times 0 is 0, so that means I get a 4 for the 0 term. Yep. So if I want the 5,000th term, what number would I plug in here? I would plug in 4,999 in here to figure it out. It doesn't say we have to, but let's go ahead and do it. What is 4 plus 9 times 4,999? You would get, so I plug 4,999 in there. I get 44,995. All right, that was a blast from the past. Sequences. All right, moving on. Number 5 says select all items that are equivalent to the square root of 24. It says, is the square root of 24 the area of a square with side lengths 24? No, 24 times 24 is not the square root of 24. The side length of a square with an area of 24, if the area is 24, how do you find the side length? You take the square root. Yes, that's true. Is the square root of 24 the positive number x, where x times x is 24? Let's try it. Is the square root of 24 times the square root of 24 equal to 24? Yes, that means the square root of 24 squared, right? And squaring is the inverse of square root. The positive number y, where y is 24 times 24. 24 times 24 is 576. That's not the square root of 24. The edge length of a cube. If I know the volume of a cube is 24, to get the edge length, I have to take the cube root of 24, not the square root of 24. Okay, that's not going to work. And the volume of a cube with 24, no, with edge of 24. If the edge is 24, the volume is 24 to the third power, which is definitely not the square root of 24. Okay, so square root has to do thinking about a square. All right, number 6, which expression is equivalent to 23 to the 1/2? Lesson 3, we discovered that the 1/2 power means square root. So this is written with exponents. This is what the equivalent radical expression would be. D. 1/2 power is equivalent to the square root. I hope that helped. I'll see you soon.